On this week's Political Figure episode, we've got the reason that Republicans need to keep Control-Alt-deleting Mitch McConnell every time he blue screens, Andy Beshear. Andy Graham Beshear was born November 29, 1977 in Louisville, Kentucky. He graduated from Henry Clay High School before going on to Vanderbilt to get a degree in anthropology in 2000, and then would go on to get his Juris Doctor from the University of Virginia School of Law in 2003. After getting his law degree and passing the bar, he was hired by Stites and Harbison law firm, and then started doing douchey lawyer stuff, like defending a controversial natural gas pipeline and its use of eminent domain, and an Indian-based company trying to get tens of millions of dollars in tax breaks from the Kentucky government. To make things more controversial, his dad was elected governor in 2007, generating criticisms of conflicts of interest while his clients tried to get special favor from the Kentucky government. His dad was the head of. But by 2015, he decided the private sector lawyering was getting old and threw his hat in the ring to do some public sector lawyering by running for attorney general. This also so happened to be the same year that his father had reached his term limit as governor and was unable to run again. Now, despite having a popular family name, Woody's owner barely squeaked out a victory with 50.1% of the vote for attorney general. At the same time, Governor Matt Bevin would go on to win the governorship, replacing Andy's father, probably not knowing what a huge pain in the ass to him his predecessor's boy was going to be. See, in addition to Andy actually doing something good with his lawyer skills and suing pharmaceutical companies like 9 different times while he was attorney general for their role in the opioid epidemic, he spent all the rest of his time as attorney general suing Governor Matt Bevin for everything. Matt Bevin tried to reform and cut teachers' pensions, and Andy pursued his ass and won. He sued him for trying to rearrange the University of Louisville's Board of Trustees, and he lost. He sued him when Bevin tried to cut $18 million to Kentucky universities, and won. All in all, he sued him like 5 times for his use of executive power and won twice. Through all of this, by 2019, Matt Bevin had sunk to be the most unpopular governor in the country, and Andy decided that that was a great time to take his job. Andy narrowly squeaked out a win for the governor's mansion, and Matt Bevin whined and cried like a little bitch, saying that there was widespread voting irregularities and he wasn't going to concede the election. So they did a recount, and it ended up changing the election results by 1 vote that was given to a write-in candidate. So cool, now he's governor, but the Republicans had a supermajority in both houses, and that made his job just sort of pointless. Basically, the General Assembly would pass legislation that he didn't like, he would veto it, and then they would just override his veto. Repeatedly. They passed anti-trans bills, he vetoed it, they overrode his veto. They passed tax cuts for alcohol producers, he vetoed it, they overrode his veto. They passed a law making it a crime to cause over $500 in damage to a rental property, he vetoed it, they overrode his veto. This happened like almost 30 times. In the words of Motley Crue, it just started to sound like the same old situation. However, despite not really being able to participate in the whole legislative part of being governor, Andy does get to use executive orders to do fun stuff. Like, he used an executive order to restore voting rights to over 180,000 nonviolent felons. He used executive order to release 1,700 inmates from overcrowded prisons during COVID. He used an executive order to allow the possession of medical marijuana. He used it to allow college athletes to be compensated for the use of their name and likeness. He got pretty much everything he's accomplished as governor done with use of executive order. And he had a little more power to do so because of the state of emergency powers given to the governor under the whole COVID thing. That is, at least until the state legislators voted to limit that use of executive order power to 30 days in a state of emergency unless extended by the legislature. Despite having his limited ability to do a whole lot, he has been a vocal supporter of things like abortion rights and expanded and more affordable healthcare options and expansions to Medicaid. He's an opponent of right-to-work laws, he supports unions, he's vocally pro-LGBTQ rights, wants to outlaw conversion therapy, is pro-legal gambling, and recently signed a bill legalizing sports betting, tried to get a provision in the budget to increase teachers' pay by $2,000, but Republicans were going to have none of that because you can't have these teachers getting all uppity thinking they're better than everybody else because they might be able to afford both food and rent. His administration granted a couple Planned Parenthoods the right to perform abortions in the state. You know, all your pretty run-of-the-mill party politic positions on these things. But he must be popular enough because he won his re-election bid by a wider margin than his first win this year. However, Republican state legislators increased their supermajority in the state, so we're probably going to see a lot more of the same. However, what makes Andy Beshear most interesting at this point in time is not what he can or can't accomplish as governor, and more the implications for the Republican Party of him being in his position if Mitch McConnell finally passes the only thing of value he will ever pass. See, Mitch McConnell is the leader of his party in the Senate, and he's held that Senate seat that undoubtedly smells like urine and the despair of the souls of innocent children since like at least the Triassic period. Now you see, incumbents win elections. It's a lot easier to hold a seat when it's already got your ass print in it. Now if Satan decides to call his demon back home because the pale man isn't spry enough to keep up with the innocent children and suck their souls out of their body anymore, before the next election, Andy Beshear gets to pick who fills Mitch McConnell's bony, stained indentation in his Senate seat, which would give Senate Democrats more voting power in the meantime and an incumbent advantage going into the next election. A next election, mind you, that won't take place until 2027. So with Andy Beshear's re-election this year, if Senate Republicans want to hang on to Mitch McConnell's Senate seat, they need to continue reenacting Weekend at Bernie's for another 4 years. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if Mitch McConnell does manage to just keep basic comatose life functions going for the next 4 years out of nothing but spite and his deep burning desire to bring forth the 10th circle of hell here on Earth. But every time a reporter softballs him a question and his little loading wheel spins and then stops and his handlers need to waddle him off stage for a factory reset, it's looking less and less likely that he's going to be able to Dianne Feinstein this shit and walker his way into cataract-riddled sight of his term expiration before, you know, his own expiration. And if that does end up happening, I can think of no better way to send him off on his highway to hell than watching Andy Beshear choose his replacement while his seat is still warm. Actually, that seat's probably been cold for a long time. What do you figure Mitch McConnell's heart rate is? Like 3 beats a minute? Maybe 4? Wait, can you even have a heartbeat without a heart? I guess it doesn't matter anyway, because reptiles are cold-blooded, so I guess it's been ice cold since the turtle sat down in it, you know, right after the asteroid struck the Earth. Anyway, I'm getting off track. That's my video about Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky.